My name is Mark R. LePage, and you are listening to Entre Architect Podcast, where each week I speak with inspiring, passionate people who share their knowledge and expertise, all to help you build a better business as a small firm entrepreneur architect. My guest today is Lauren Thomsen, founder and principal of Thomsen Design, a Philadelphia-based practice focused on high-performance buildings, adaptive reuse, and thoughtful urban residential design. Lauren has built a reputation for combining technical expertise with beautifully crafted architecture, especially through complex renovations and passive house projects in urban, dense environments. She's also an educator, a mentor, an active voice in the profession, helping architects better understand how design, sustainability, and building performance can work together to create healthier, more resilient homes and community. Lauren Thomsen, welcome to Entre Architect Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Mark.
It's great to have you with us. Let's start where we always start, with an origin story. I'd love to learn more about you. When did you discover your passion for architecture, and who or what inspired you to get started?
I am one of these architects who started drawing houses very young.
How young?
At the age of 7, my family moved. And I remember being in the back of the realtor's car and becoming very fascinated with the floor plans and the layouts of the houses. So it was a really fun introduction into kind of, myriad ways that homes could be organized, and what I found, a fun way to be able to critique them. So I think I've always known, not forcibly that I wanted to be an architect, but that I had a real intrinsic interest in space.
Yeah.
And also specifically the home.
Do you remember when you learned that there was a profession called architecture? That light bulb moment where you said, oh, it went from just interest in architecture and design to, oh, I could be an architect.
I think it was introduced to me very young. My father's a civil engineer who has owned a large practice for a long time and has always been very kind of involved in that. And I interned for him. My mom, on the other hand, was a graphic designer. So I kind of was
merged them.
Yeah. But I was very independent, and I don't want to say obstinate, but I probably was thinker as a child. And so I did not go to school for architecture. I wanted to do liberal arts. And I ended up having an opportunity to really kind of broaden my education and understand, critical thinking. And I got to go live in France for a couple of years. So despite having known that I was really kind of meant to be an architect, I think I always knew this. I have folders and binders of houses, I took a really roundabout way of getting there. And I think it was absolutely for the better, because for me, I always am fascinated by the fact that architecture is a very local expression of a culture. It is very much a language, and it's a resultant of the culture that designs it, of the zeitgeist, like of the time. So that to me is something that is really fascinating to me. And I think that is one reason I enjoy doing residential work, because it's such an individualistic, expression. But I went to school in upstate New York and graduate school in upstate New York and worked for a large AE firm and got really great, wonderful kind of foundation there. And then my husband ended up taking a job in Philadelphia, where I grew up. And despite having said, I don't think I'm going to go live there again, with 2 little kids, I found myself saying, why don't we move near family?
Yes, exactly.
And at that moment, I could have gone and worked for a large firm, or I could have started my own small firm. And I decided to go out on my own, despite being pretty young. And I'm really glad that I did. And that was almost 10 years ago. And
yeah,
it's been absolutely the best thing I've ever done.
I want to dive into your practice and what you do. Before that, though, you said that it was a very roundabout way to become an architect.
Yeah.
How did you go from liberal arts in college to working in an architecture firm? Where was that mindset shift?
Well, I did a lot of art I did fine art also. And I also, I waitressed. And I met an architect. And, through my dad's connections and his professional network, I had interned with a landscape architect and interned for him at the engineering firm and interned also for an architect. So I got an internship with an architect one summer during college, and he taught me how to draw. And basically I was able to develop a portfolio. So when I graduated from undergraduate with a degree in fine arts and comparative literature, the economy was so good at that time that I put together a portfolio and I got a job with an architecture firm, small firm.
There you go.
And just kind of as like a drafting assistant and they taught me CAD. And then I did that for a couple of years. I ended up working for a general contractor and his developer who did kind of like really neat adaptable reuse projects and being kind of near where I grew up. And I worked for 4 years. And then at that time I was like, I need to go back to school. And then I ended up going back to graduate school in upstate New York and at RPI. And it was an awesome education. And then I stayed up there and worked for a really large firm, got licensed. That was a very big priority to me always, was to kind of get licensed and have the ability to make choice from there.
Yeah.
And then ended up moving back.
So moved back to Philly.
Yeah.
Husband got a job there. Family was there. Everything sort of made sense to go back to Philly and make that happen. But starting your own firm, what was the inspiration of starting your own firm 10 years ago?
I think I wanted to do that.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as the architecture. I don't think I ever articulated those words, but when I was working for the large AE firm, which has since been consumed by other firms, I looked at the people kind of at the top, the executive level there, and I said, I just don't think that lifestyle is for me. And also working on large kind of higher ed and also embassy and like overseas work, it felt so distant from the people who actually were the end users and appreciative, occupying your projects and appreciating them. So I always kind of wanted that intimacy and like the ability to design something that would have really genuinely impact someone's life.
Yeah.
Which I hope that doesn't sound egotistical, but I think it's, there's just something, it's a different resonance,
Yes.
Like the space in your home versus, where you go to class twice a week for a year.
Yeah. Being a residential architect myself for many years, you literally change people's lives with the work that you do as a residential architect.
I think so. You can benefit.
So when you started the firm, what did that look like when you first launched?
It was scrappy. I reached out to all of the people that I knew from my time between college and grad school and local connections. It was just me. And I was working out of the office space on the top of the apartment building that I was living in the city. But I was also teaching. So I kind of purposefully made the decision to teach and was able to connect with people from RPI in Philly. And that was a really nice beginning of a network, like a professional network, because Philly it's a big city. It's a small town in design. And it's just the most wonderful, like kind, supportive group of people. So, I was very worried about having enough work and kind of getting momentum and getting the thing off the ground. But I just starting with an addition on my parents' house, like many do.
Yeah.
I heard Peter Boland say that. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm not the only one. But I just started getting project after project. And I really put my heart into every job so that they were as good as they could be.
Yeah.
And then from there, it kind of grew a little.
So what does the firm look like today, 10 years later?
So we are 6. And it is myself and 2 other architects, one of whom was the guy who got me the teaching job and who was actually, I think, a professor of mine at RPI, who I've known for 20 years, or going on 20, I guess. And a designer and like a marketing business development woman who's really helped us with kind of like the business infrastructure. And then also I just hired on a part-time capacity, but working up to full-time, an interior designer and started an interior design company.
Separate company from the architecture firm?
Correct. But it's really imagined, it's not client face. It's really imagined to be one experience from a client perspective so that
sure,
we can really kind of be full service, because increasingly our clients really want that, that level of service where they can come to us for planning, for architecture. They want the interior seamlessly integrated into that, landscape, all that.
And so Philadelphia is a historic city, hundreds of years old, lots of old architecture. It sounds like you do mostly dense urban residential work. So you're not doing single family houses out in the grass somewhere.
We are doing increasing.
So you're doing that too?
Yeah. But it's interesting. The two typologies really buoy each other.
How?
So we'll have a lot of work in the suburbs and then a lot of work in the city. And it's also really nice because there's such different design challenges.
So it's a good way to diversify, keeping it all within residential architecture. That's interesting because lots of architects, they want to do everything. They want to do residential, they want to do commercial, they want to do institutional. But you focused specifically on residential, become an expert on residential, but have done different types of residential.
Yeah. But Philly is it's such a fascinating, incredible, because you open up walls and they've been through 6
right.
lives. It's like if the walls could talk, that's the place. But also, conversely, you open up walls and you're like, this is 200 years old, but nothing about how we built this has changed.
Right.
It's still a brick. It's still there.
Yeah.
And it's in perfect shape. Not always, but it's pretty amazing, the way the city and the scale of the city, the urban patterns, the grids, that like nothing has changed. Where people are still, our office is in a row. Yeah. A row that's 18 feet wide, Yeah. Probably had a bathroom in the backyard to begin with. Now,
very resilient construction 200 years ago.
Yeah.
Or 100 years ago, or however old the buildings are.
Yeah. And those buildings today, like their electric bill is tiny because they're insulated on 2 sides.
And you also focus on high performance residential work, passive house and all kinds of high performance. So how do you do that in such old structures?
What we start by doing, and high performance in a row house specifically is an even more of a challenge because you're dealing with such constrained envelope. Really, you have the front, the back, the roof that you can manipulate. But in many ways, it's an attached house is already high performing because you got 2 adiabatic walls. So what we do is we try and introduce these concepts as baseline to our clients and say, look, you're making an enormous investment. Let's make one that this will be, it's called high performance now, but in 10 or 15 years, it's going to be code, Right. So why don't you build the better thing now? Ensure that this is going to be the best investment that it can be for you. And we also kind of encourage clients to understand that it's really not all or nothing. So, we have done one certified passive house. We've done a number of houses that are extremely high performing, but we also will have clients who say, we're going to make the decision. We're going to provide power for future solar. We're not going to have gas in the house. It's a matter of education, I think.
What kind of challenges do you come across with row houses compared to like a new custom residential house, single family house in a lot compared to in the city, neighbors on both sides, but you still want to do high-end design, still want to do high-performance design. Can you talk about like maybe even a specific project that you've worked on that those challenges came up and the solution that you came up with to solve the problem?
I mean, I think speaking more generally, the challenges come down to the fact that your building is like 200 inches wide. Your stairs can't be less than 36 and your hallway can't either, so then
Right.
What are we playing with? But that's also kind of it's like a wonderful expertise to develop because you start to get very nimble and you start to have to really understand material, and how to be deft with materiality and, building assemblies. And so I think that for us, it demands a lot of technical expertise that translates into nice design, and so it's kind of a marriage of those two. I think the biggest challenge in terms of us thinking of specifically, or I guess staying general, the challenge becomes even when you get through the jigsaw puzzle that is the design, executing that is a challenge because, then all of a sudden your survey said that the building was this wide, but then you've just lost 2 inches because you've uncovered something in the neighbor's wall, or there was an old fireplace that bumps out something.
Yeah.
Or we find that a wall that we anticipated using or not demolishing was unfortunately had to be demolished. So navigating the changes between the design intent, the drawings, the approved design, what everyone's budgeted for, and those unknown unknowns that can come up in a very constrained thing. We're not in a field, just ground up where we can shift an inch if we need to.
Yeah.
Navigating those changes, that I think is one of the biggest challenges of working in an urban context because it requires really strong communication skills, both before they happen, like preparing people that it can happen.
Exactly. Yeah.
Strong communication skills and design skills as it happens. If something does come up, okay, solutions,
Right.
And then also just kind of keeping everyone happy and teamwork. So we've had projects like that, and where not only are you buoying the client and their kind of attitude about the project, but then also the neighbors get folded in because you tell them, well,
right,
this was supposed to be a wood wall, but it's actually going to be a giant CMU wall. And they're going, what? We'll paint it for you. You can make it. So that kind of thing happens all the time in an urban context.
Let's take a quick break to say thank you to our sponsors for their support of this episode. This episode of Entree Architect Podcast is supported by WeCollabify, one of our trusted allied partners. As this community has grown over the years, one thing has become very clear to me. The partners we choose matter. Allied partners are not sponsors. They're not advertisers. They are organizations that we've taken the time to get to know, to work alongside, and to trust. They understand the real pressures of practice and the responsibility that comes with leading a small firm. WeCollabify earned that trust by helping small firm owners address a challenge that sits at the center of long-term firm health, building capacity in a way that supports people, not just projects. Their insourcing model brings skilled design, BIM, and technical professionals directly into your team. They work in your time zone, inside your systems, and part of your day-to-day workflow. That integration allows firms to add capacity when it's needed, scale with intention, and grow without sacrificing culture, leadership focus, or quality of life. If you're thinking beyond short-term fixes and focused on building a firm that lasts, I encourage you. Go learn why WeCollabify is one of our trusted allied partners. Visit WeCollabify.com/EntreArchitect to learn more. That's WeCollabify.com/EntreArchitect. Gain lessons learned and credits earned with Arcademy, ARCAT's continuing education program, Listen to popular episodes of the Detailed podcast and earn AIA-approved HSW credits. Yes, you heard that right, HSW credits for episodes of Detailed podcast. Listen to an episode, check out the learning objectives, and use what you've learned while listening to take the course. The program is free, it's simple, and can be found at arcat.com under the Resources tab. Or just go to arcat.com/arcademy. That's arcat.com/arcatemy. That's arcat.com/arcademy. Please visit our sponsors today and thank them. Thank them for supporting you, the Entre Architect community. How do you find contractors who can execute on the quality that you expect as well as the high performance work that you are looking for? Do you bid your work out on every project, or do you just work with specific contractors?
We do tend to bid our jobs, typically at the client's behest. These are huge investments. And so we have tried to recommend really excellent contractors that we work with and, say, well, we're going to do a negotiated fee and we really want to get them in as we do. And that works from time to time, but it's a specific client that has the trust and faith to do that. And also maybe we don't push it enough, and we could, but we bid them very early to get the really kind of after SD, we develop a very kind of comprehensive scope narrative and kind of develop an early DD set, I'd say. Maybe DD, but before we're finished with the design.
Yeah, right. So it's sort of a compromise between a full bid project where you have to do this fully developed construction document set, make sure everybody's on the same page, bid it out to everybody, get the final bid, and they go build, rather than bid it really early, find the right contractor that's generally in the ballpark of where you want to be, somebody you trust, somebody you like, and then you work with them all the way through the design process.
And refine the budget. So we rely on material allowances, basis of design pretty heavily.
So it gives you both worlds. It gives you the contractor pretty early so they can work through the process and adjust the budget along the way, but still give the client the comfort that they're bidding out and getting the quote unquote best price.
That's where we are now.
Yeah.
If you have suggestions.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good way to do it. We just before we started recording here, I just finished up our expert training session at Entre Architect that we have for the membership. And Emily Mottram was the speaker. And that conversation actually came up. And what she had suggested, she only works with contractors from the very beginning. They bring them on at schematic design. And what she does is she includes it in her contract that if you want to work with us, this is how the process works. And you have to bring on a contractor at schematic design and you work with this contractor through the process.
It's pretty awesome.
They still do interviews. They still get all of the information. They still get, insurance, make sure they have good recommendations, all those things, but they bring on that contractor very, very early. And she's gotten to the point where she no longer has to have that conversation because she has now the reputation of being able to work that way. And so people who come to her, because she's been doing it that way for so long, that's what they expect.
That's awesome.
And you said earlier that much of the solution is to make sure that you have that communication up front. So they have the expectations managed before they get too deep into the project. And that's a big part of it as well.
It is. And I could see us moving in that direction. I think it's to have the contractor be part of the team from the beginning of the project is just so much more effective.
Yeah.
It's just, being realistic about the budget and, finding clients who are okay with like a, order of magnitude.
And also Emily is in Maine and you are in Philadelphia, and I worked in New York, just outside of New York City. New York City and Philadelphia clients are different than Maine clients.
Yeah.
you could just put it that way. They're not as trustful as someone in Maine might be.
Yeah. I mean, it might also, I'm not sure, but at least for us, these are $1 to $3 million jobs typically. Yeah. Easily.
Right.
So
big investments.
Yeah. So I don't take it lightly, and I appreciate, the clients, the trust that we're asking for.
Yeah.
The weight of that.
So in the introduction, I mentioned that you also teach and mentor. How does that work into your life and your business and what you do? How are you teaching?
So I'm actually on a hiatus right now because my kids have grown and are very busy. Very busy,
I
but they don't
remember those
drive.
days.
So I drive. I'm in the chauffeur era.
Yes.
But yeah, I think since I graduated from graduate school, I taught at RPI while I was living in upstate New York and then came down here, taught at Jefferson and then at Temple. And now I sit on reviews. I try to stay connected. And I think that it's a really refreshing and it's kind of like, it's like exercise, right? It's like doing your design push-ups.
Yeah.
So I think it's very helpful to kind of be around students and their energy. And I really enjoy helping them and like giving them honest feedback and also kind of like ideas on where they can grow, what there's, like alternative paths, like I did not take the straight and narrow and I'm all for people doing their own things. And that means something different for every individual.
Yeah, I agree. The world needs better and more architects everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. But when I was younger in my career, I benefited enormously from people who said, let me help you out, or let me introduce you to someone, or this is my exam material. I just took it. Call me if you need it, So I always try to pay that forward. But I also really find it genuinely invigorating to look at other work. I like traveling for the same reason, to see other people's and hear about other people's ideas, to try and articulate your own ideas. I think it's a healthy thing. And when we work, sometimes we can get siloed into patterns, and like just being exposed to one group of people. So I always try to make sure to branch out, see new things, be around people, maintain a network in Philly.
Yeah, that's great.
For that same reason.
What do you imagine your firm looks like in 5 years from now? Technology is changing, materials are changing. How do you imagine your firm looks in 5 years? Pretty much the same, or do you imagine changes?
I think, in my mind and like recently, the way imagery is produced has been market. It's just something, it used to occupy a lot of headspace and time. And also your own headspace to be like, what's that going to be like?
Yeah.
And now you say, what's that going to be like? And then it shows you.
Right.
Even when you didn't mean that, it's like, wait, was something listening to me? And all of a sudden. So I would imagine that we're going to be like sitting at tables and hologramming, I think probably some firms already are, but, just able to immediately produce things out of our head, not even have to translate them through a model, which we do now.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's 5 years away. I mean, I think we'll probably lose the need for our bodies soon enough, but I don't know that that's lifetime. But I think it's kind of crazy. It's all going there.
Yeah.
But I would like to still have the same collaborative spirit and environment. I think we will I hope to be a little bit bigger. I hope to be a little bit more systematized in terms of how we move through projects, because I think residential of all project types is very unwieldy in terms of, I don't think I dramatically see differences in the way we deliver projects from a design price to build. Mm-hmm. Instead, I guess I see an expansion of what we are providing clients during design. I like the ability to see what we will potentially execute.
Yeah. Yeah. Be able to communicate more through imagery, quicker, faster, more imagery.
Iteratively. Like that's already impacting our work.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. It's already impacting our work internally. And also now I have clients being like, well, I rendered this. And I'm like,
yeah. That's scary when they show up and they're like, ta-da, here's what I want. Make it real. I'm sure we're going to get more of those because that's, the technology is there that they can do that.
Yeah. So I try to stay in the moment, but also I don't know what day it is. And
well, yeah, you're running an architecture firm with 6 people. You're a chauffeur for 2 kids. So it's, I understand. I've been there.
We're all busy. Yeah.
Yes. So final question. What's one thing a small firm architect can do today to build a better business for tomorrow?
I was thinking about this, and can I have 2 would-be answers and then my real answer?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, the first would be organize. The second would be find people who are good at things that you're not good at.
That's good advice.
Or
fill the gaps.
Yeah. Or just, invest everything you can in people that really enhance you, or compliment you, or find people that you have a kind of a symbiosis with.
Yeah.
But I think, I guess maybe that's the second is leading up to it. I think it's really just do everything you can the best you can.
I like it. Yeah.
It sounds like something a 4-year-old, you tell your 4-year-old, but
right.
I think in business we get caught up on, how profitable are we and how all these metrics, right?
Yeah.
But I think ultimately it comes down to your reputation and the amount of trust your clients have. So I think if you can every day invest in, trying to be a good communicator and do the best you can with the design work, do the best, it's exhausting to do the best you can. But I think that's what it comes down to. And maybe through being organized and finding those other people that allows for that.
It's a very good reminder because I think many of us come into the profession with that mindset. And then life gets in the way and business gets hard and, it chips away at it and you forget that that's what you want to do and that's what you should do. And so I think that's a great answer. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Her name is Lauren Thomsen. Lauren Thomsen Design is the firm. Check it out at laurenthomsendesign.com. THOMSEN, laurenthomsendesign.com. If you want to see more of what Lauren's doing and say hi. Lauren, thank you for coming by, sharing your story at Entre Architect Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark, for having me. It was a pleasure.
You're welcome. If you enjoyed this episode of Entre Architect Podcast, please share a link with a friend because that's how we've continued to grow and serve thousands more small firm architects just like you. Thank you to our sponsors for this episode. Links to the sponsors and all the resources we discussed today, they are all available in the show notes for this episode at entrearchitect.com/podcast. Entre Architect is a proud member of the Gable Media Network. It's the multimedia network moving the architecture, engineering, and construction industries forward through the power of storytelling. You can earn AIA continuing education credits by listening to select episodes of this podcast and many others at gablemedia.com/members. And if you are a small firm architect, listen up. Join us today at Entre Architect Network. It's the worldwide community for entrepreneur architects. We've been around since 2012, and our basic level is now free to join. Yes, you can join Entre Architect Network for free. And that gives you access to valuable business resources and our global community of architects. And you can upgrade anytime for live coaching, AIA-approved training, and mastermind support. So visit entrearchitect.com to learn more and to get started. My name is Mark R. LePage. Thank you for listening to the Entre Architect Podcast. Love, learn, share.